Welcome back to The Real Story. Open borders take lives. That's a point that American leftists deny time and time again, even though it's very true and very real and easy to see. In fact, our latest story on the show is yet another testament to what happens when we leave our borders wide open and roll out the red carpet for illegal immigrants, including dangerous illegal immigrants. Now that brings us to a woman named Sheridan Gorman. Born in the year 2007, Gorman was just an 18-year-old student at Loyola University Chicago, and she was fatally shot on Thursday, March 19th. Originally from Yorktown Heights, New York, she was studying business, and she was tragically killed while walking along the pier next to Chicago's Toby Prince Beach Park with some friends who wanted to see the Northern Lights just last week. It was around 1:30 a.m. local time, and the suspect, who was reportedly wearing a mask at the time of the shooting, approached them out of the blue supposedly, and then opened fire, fatally shooting Gorman as she tried to run away. Now the gunman is facing charges for attempted first-degree murder, aggravated unlawful possession of a weapon, and even 3 counts of aggravated assault and discharge of a firearm. But even more disturbing than those facts, the suspect is allegedly an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. According to reports, he came to the U.S. in 2023. He was caught by border officials and was then released intentionally by the Biden administration. And now ICE officials are asking Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker to not release him for obvious reasons. ICE has also lodged an arrest detainer for obvious reasons as well. But speaking of Governor Pritzker, he hasn't said one thing about the murder, at least not at the time of this recording. Which is strange because back on January 28th, he posted this picture of himself at a memorial spot for Renee Good and Alex Preddy, both of whom died in ICE-related shootings in Minneapolis. But he hasn't said one thing about one of his own state's residents being tragically murdered, let alone a college student. I ask why? Well, folks, that's where our panelists enter the picture. So here with their thoughts are Woodrow Johnston, a GOP strategist and chairman of the Nevada Young Republicans, and Michael Wynne, a white-collar defense attorney and former federal prosecutor. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
So,
thanks for having me.
I want to start with you, Michael, about the legality of this and the charges, because we do have someone who is reportedly here illegally. Is it safe to say that deportation is on the table?
Well, deportation is a certainty, right? Because he's going to be an aggravated felon who re-entered after a conviction. But what we need to do is to go. I mean, the problem is bail reform. Okay. The problem is this guy should not have been released on bond to begin with. And that was the governor's first problem, is liberalizing the bail rules. He should have remained in custody. At least maybe we'd have been a little safer. That's what we got to do. And we got to prosecute. Hopefully this guy, deportation is never going to be a question because he's spending the rest of his life in prison.
Well, let me follow up then. And this ties into Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, which I also want to bring up today. So let's say that we do get authorization to deport. How do we know some rogue, crackpot, activist, radical left-wing judge won't try to stop that process? And if they do, then what do we do?
Well, that's the problem we have with Abrego Garcia's case, is you have an allegation of a vindictive prosecution because charges were brought when he was brought back to the United States. That puts the administration in an unenviable spot, and the judge there is the one who's putting him in that spot. My recommendation there is to go ahead, try that case immediately. It's not that tough a case. It's a human trafficking case. They got plenty of evidence. Let's go forward and try it, make him serve his time here, and then deport him. Because once you deport him, even to a place like Liberia, these people can find a way to try to get back in. I want them to serve their time in the highest security, most miserable federal prison here. Yeah, first. Maybe that'll be a deterrent.
Well, so bring it back then to this suspect who's the alleged killer of this 18-year-old student. It's so reminiscent of what we saw with Laken Riley right in Georgia. So if there is some sort of judge or somebody out there anywhere who tries to stop a potential looming deportation, what kind of recourse do local officials have, or even state or federal officials?
Look, what recourse do we have?
Yes.
Well, look, we already have these state versus local fights going on. Again, if they're charged of a crime, we have the executive branch of the United States federal government. I say go for prosecution under the underlying charge. That strengthens your deportation position.
Okay.
And the federal government wins 98% of the time in federal court. Let's proceed along that fashion. That gives you another weapon.
Understood. Thank you for that. I appreciate the legal analysis. As for the political takes on this, Woodrow, first, just your initial reactions to this really heartbreaking tragedy.
Well, first off, my heart goes out to the family of the victim, and frankly, no parent should have to bury their child. And the fact of the matter is, if this person was here illegally in the first place, they never should have been here to give them the opportunity to commit that crime. That's the real problem, is that if you are an illegal immigrant, if you come into this country illegally or you overstay your visa, you are showing complete disregard for the rule of law in this country, and you should not be here. And frankly, anyone who helps you be here probably should be prosecuted as well. And that's the problem, is that executives and judges really need to stand up for the people who put them there. My sheriff here in Clark County, Nevada, he's standing up to liberal activist judges right now. We had a liberal activist judge who released this person who is a multi-time offender, and luckily our sheriff consulted with probably consulting with some really smart attorneys, found some statutes that allowed him to continue to hold the person. And that's what we need to do. We need to do every legal measure possible to hold people who are committing violent crimes, citizens, and deport illegal immigrants at all levels.
Yeah, agreed. And now that brings us to, and before we get into the Kilmar case again, I do want to ask you about the question of optics as we move into the midterm elections. Democrats out there would, and the liberal media would have us believe that deportations and border security is a wildly unpopular issue with the American people. I disagree. I don't see the poll data for that, but I want to get your thoughts about that, Woodrow. When it comes to the optics of illegal immigrant crime and deportations and ICE and DHS, who do you think this really says more about in terms of the negativity? Do you think this is going to be a winning issue again for Republicans going into the midterms? Do you see it differently? What do you make of the optics and the messaging around these problems?
Sure. Well, I've seen polling that shows the exact opposite. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, people do not trust the mainstream media anymore. Of course, the mainstream media is going to do whatever they can to make the deportations look bad. And the fact of the matter is we do not trust the mainstream media's depiction of it. Barack Obama deported more people than President Trump. Okay. And there were actually more officer-involved shootings under Barack Obama per capita than under President Trump. And the media did not depict those, did not do anything to make Barack Obama look bad, despite his aggressive immigration stuff. So I think what it comes down to is Americans want to feel safe. They want the laws to be enforced, and they just do not buy this narrative that enforcing the law is bad.
Yeah, well said. I think you're right about that. Certainly right about the mistrust of the mainstream media, rightfully so. And speaking of that, let's talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, someone who came here illegally, a supposed member of MS-13, an international gang, a trafficking organization, and yet at the time of his first apprehension, the mainstream media referred to him not as an illegal immigrant gangbanger, but as a Maryland father of five. Now there's an ongoing fight still to get him removed from the country. He was sent down to Latin America to CCOT. We brought him back. He's facing charges, and now there is a huge standoff to get him removed from the country once again. Michael, I want to get your legal analysis of what's going on and how you think this legal standoff is going to end.
Look here first. The liberal media, mainstream media is what it is. We know what it is, and it ain't going to change, right? So I'm a fan of doing what we can do. And in terms of the midterm election, showing, that someone who's here illegally illegally and committing crimes and prosecuting the crimes is the best way, right down the middle, to convince the voters this is a significant problem. That is the ones who are in the middle. The ones who are in the middle, we need to convince. We can complain about liberal media all we want. They're here to stay. Maybe their audience diminishes, but we got to look at the facts and show the facts. And I think that's gonna convince your voters. So I think with him, the way this has been set up and the judge you got, that judge, the government has a lot of means to keep by mandamus taking it up to the United States Supreme Court. So I wouldn't worry about a dismissal. Get the conviction. That gives you more options.
Well said. Gentlemen, thank you both for what you're doing for this country, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up next on The Real Story, in light of the DHS shutdown and migrant crime and the murder of Sheridan Gorman, that college student we just discussed, it's more important than ever before to back the DHS. So when we come back, we'll talk about the man who's set to be their brand new secretary at the end of this month. Stay with us.